And about 3 in the morning, I was in my patrol car, 4 hours from going off duty, reviewing reports. And all of a sudden, the alert tones come on the radio. And that's basically like a really high-pitched alternating sound that comes on the police radio. It's unusual. It only comes out for the most severe calls or in-progress calls. And so immediately my attention perked up. Immediately I start listening. And the dispatcher, female dispatcher, sounds very frantic. I'd never heard her sound like this before. And she puts out that there is a woman inside the condominium and a man armed with a knife. About halfway there, the dispatcher again gets on the radio and she says now that the boyfriend and girlfriend are barricaded inside their bedroom. And I was confused, so I actually asked for clarification on the radio and I said, is the boyfriend the one with the knife or is there a third subject with a knife? And the dispatcher quickly says, no, there's a third subject armed with a knife. And so now just all these thoughts are racing through my head. I mean, adrenaline is pumping, my heart is racing. I'm trying to get there as fast as I can. I'm the only supervisor on duty. Like, just everything is going through my head. And I pull up on scene. It's very dark. And literally as I start getting out of my car, the dispatcher starts screaming now on the radio. And she says, units, there's a struggle. And she says the phone line went dead. And thank goodness at the same time, one of my officers is pulling up right behind me. And we can hear blood-curdling screams from a female coming from the distance. And I look at her, she looks at me, we have our guns out, and we just start running towards the screams. And we end up finding the unit, and it goes from these blood-curdling screams to just eerie silence. I mean, literally like no noise whatsoever. We announce ourselves. I start banging on the door saying, police, come out, show us your hands. Don't hear anything. There's no movement. Nobody comes to the door. I try kicking open the door. It doesn't work. My partner motions and notices a huge window. It's a louvered window the size of a door. It's completely shattered into the condominium. And so she posts up on the left. I'm on the right. Again, our guns are out. And we're yelling inside, police, come out, show us your hands. Nothing. No movement, no sound. She looks at me, I look at her, she goes in, I go in right behind her. Immediately we're in this kitchen area and there's just glass everywhere. You can see there's like a cutout that goes to like a family room, living room area. And then basically we both exit the kitchen. She goes right, which puts her at the base of a stairwell. And behind her is that locked front door that I tried kicking open. I go left down the hallway. I clear that family room, living room area, checking for people, for anything. Come back to the bottom of the stairs. Now, literally, I'm shoulder to shoulder with my partner. She's to my right. To her right is a solid wall. So basically, there's a solid wall, my partner, myself. We're looking up this dark staircase, and we can see there's an opening to the top left. We don't know if it's a landing, if it goes to a room, a hallway, but there's some type of opening. We have our guns out. We have mounted flashlights on our guns, very bright lights. And again, we're yelling, police, come out, show us your hands. Moments later, a male subject partially comes out. We can't see the entire right side of his body. You can only see the left side of his body. Sweating profusely, his eyes are like wide open, literally just staring straight through us. The best way to describe it is like something out of a zombie movie. I mean, literally just staring straight through us. Again, we're yelling, guns are out, show us your hands. I don't remember any visible reaction. I don't remember eyes blinking. I don't remember facial expression, no body movement, nothing. At some point, 2 more officers come inside the condominium. And I yell for one of them to get the less lethal or the taser. And so there's another male officer and a female officer. The male officer says, I've got the taser. He positions right behind myself and that first officer. So there's 3 of us at the base of that stairwell. The 4th officer, a female officer, goes perpendicular to the stairwell. She has her gun out. Moments later, my partner yells, he's got a knife. And now we can see his entire body. In his right hand, he's clenching a huge, full-size kitchen knife, literally just staring straight through us. And now we're yelling, drop the knife. Again, no reaction. And then moments later, he takes the knife up over his head in a stabbing position and starts coming towards us down the stairwell. I shoot. Other officers shoot. Eventually, he's down at the bottom of the stairs. I don't know if I've hit him or not. I don't see any blood. I don't see any injuries. 2 officers retreated to the family room, living room area. The male officer that had the taser dropped the taser. He now has his firearm out. And so literally, we are just a few feet from the subject at the bottom of the stairs. He's still clenching this huge knife. And so now we're yelling at him, drop the knife, drop the knife. He starts coming back up with the knife. I mean, literally right there in front of me. And I shot. My partner shot. I mean, it was devastating. It was obvious that he had been killed at that point. I mean, his eye was gone. There was blood everywhere. We had already had medical staging. The dispatch had the fire department staging. So I radioed in, sent in medical. I had one of the officers check his vitals. There were no vitals. I then had 2 officers go upstairs and check on that couple. And thank God we got there when we did, because literally the subject had been stabbing through the bedroom door with this huge knife, and the door was coming off the hinges. And this poor couple was physically barricading their bodies against that door, preventing him from coming in. And I know to this day, had we not gotten there when we did, that couple would have been killed. I have no doubt, absolutely no doubt. But that incident, I call it my tipping point, because I had been exposed to hundreds of incidents before that. Incidents I never talked about, I never processed. They just stacked up and stacked up. But this incident literally took away my feeling of invincibility that I'd had my entire career in both the military and law enforcement. I mean, I literally thought I was untouchable, but the fact is that I took a life. And it doesn't matter that it was justified. It doesn't matter that people were saved. I have to live with that fact. And I don't think most people understand the weight of something like that. After that happened, a whole chain of events happened. There's internal investigation. There's an investigation by the district attorney's office. There's court proceedings. In this case, we were sued by the family almost immediately. I endured a 4-year federal lawsuit, a civil lawsuit for $15 million. And the father of the man that I killed was sitting that close to me across the table every year when I had a deposition. And I would have to sit there with him staring at me the entire time. And at the same time, I felt for him.
Yeah.
I wanted him to know that I never wanted to do this, that I had no choice. And what I didn't tell you was that the man that tried to kill me had an identical twin brother. And he was in the courtroom with me. So this face that had been in my nightmares for 4 years is literally sitting feet behind me in the courtroom for 2 weeks. And I told myself the whole time that once I got past that trial, all my problems go away. And we prevailed. We won the trial, but they didn't go away. That trial made things much, much worse. I started having constant nightmares where literally I couldn't get the face of this man that tried to kill me out of my nightmares. I literally didn't want to be around anybody. I didn't want to go to social events. I didn't want to go to family functions. I literally just wanted to be in a dark room by myself and hope that this was some nightmare that would go away. I literally lost everything. It got to the point where my marriage was over. I was fighting for custody of my beautiful daughter. I mean, literally everything was weighing down on me. And it got to the point where I didn't want to live anymore. I literally wanted to die. And literally, I started putting myself in dangerous situations at work, hoping that a bad guy took me out, putting my judgment, my tactics, my training to the side, and literally putting myself in harm's way, hoping somebody killed me. Because if I died in line of duty, I'd be a hero. My daughter financially would be taken care of. Things would be named after me. There's no way my department would ever let my daughter forget who I was and how much I loved her. But that's how bad it got. That's how dark it got. And it was a few weeks later, I was on duty and my best friend tried to kill himself when I was on duty. And that was my wake-up call. Because a month after that is when I got the strength and courage to finally ask for help. And I pulled out my cell phone. I called the on-duty watch commander and just said, look, I can't do this anymore. I need help. And they had no idea. I hadn't talked to anybody at my agency, anybody in my department of all these thoughts I was having, of all that I was going through, because the stigma and the culture prevented that. But I knew after seeing my best friend trying to kill himself and literally sitting for hours in the hospital, waiting for him to come out of surgery, wondering if he was going to live, all I could think about was my daughter. And all I could think about was what's going to be the domino effect on her and her future children if she finds out I killed myself. And that's what saved me. And that's what started this process. And initially, my department was super supportive. They got me off work. They got me the resources I needed. I met a phenomenal, culturally competent clinician, a therapist. And what I mean by that is one who specializes in first responders or military members. And so, thank goodness, I met a phenomenal therapist who had spent decades working with first responders. And she was absolutely critical to my recovery process. And she told me about first responder support meetings, which I had no idea about. And these are anonymous group meetings, somewhat like NA meetings or 12-step meetings, only open to first responders. And that's where, for the first time, I met fellow brothers and sisters, paramedics, dispatchers, police officers, firefighters, who were sharing, like literally things they were going through, had gone through, how they came out the other side. And I didn't realize, like, I thought I was the only one. I thought there was something wrong with me. And I quickly realized that there was countless of my brothers and sisters out there who were going through the exact same things. And that's where the real power and healing was, is knowing that I wasn't alone and knowing that I had this new family I found where I could share anything and everything and not be judged, not be looked down upon. And here's the most ironic thing. So at this point, I'd been a police officer for over a decade, right? And I trusted the people I work with. Like, I knew that if I went to an active shooter situation, they would have my back to the fullest. I trusted them with my life. But why is it that I couldn't trust them enough to ever open up or have real life discussions about what I was going through, about what was going on in my personal life? That's what I'm saying. It's the culture. And how ironic is it that I go to these meetings and meet essentially strangers, people I've never worked with, people that I've never met, and in a matter of a couple meetings, I got the strength and courage to start sharing for the very first time in my life things that I've never shared before, ever. What I do think is that because of the stigma attached to it, there's a couple things that happen. The first thing is that when people finally get the strength and courage to ask for help, they don't get the help they need. Or they get outcasted. You know, they get put out on an island by themselves where nobody wants to be associated with them.
And that's terrifying for people of your profession, right? Because you build camaraderie that is not replaceable anywhere else. So you're almost getting removed from your tribe or family even deeper, in a sense.
In my opinion, that's more traumatizing than the things that we see on the street or the things that we see on the battlefield. Though those are horrific, but what I call it administrative betrayal or institutional betrayal, and we talk about this in the book. But this is where your blue family in the case of law enforcement, or your red family in the case of the fire department, when you first join these agencies, it feels like a family. You truly believe that they have your back, that they're going to do anything for you. And in that moment, when you need them most and they turn their back on you, this is what I think pushes most people over the edge into suicide, because it's that abandonment. And, we're going to probably go into this eventually, but it brings up unresolved childhood trauma, which in a lot of cases is abandonment in different forms. It's trauma on top of trauma on top of trauma. If you can visualize it, you have this unresolved childhood trauma. On top of that, you have the workplace trauma or the battlefield trauma. Now on top of that, you have moral injury, and then you have administrative betrayal or institutional betrayal. Most first responders, we forget about our childhood. We push it away. We move on. We become very successful. And it's not until another traumatic incident brings it all right back up.
What was the first tool or practice or therapy? What was the first time that you felt relief from trauma?
The first time, I would say, was the first meeting with my therapist. To have this comfort level of being in a protected, trusted, private environment where I could share anything and everything and know that it was safe and know that she knew what I was talking about, Indescribable, the power behind that. Absolutely.
Wow. What tools do you use today? I know you mentioned meditation. There was some sort of injection, ESGG. Is that?
Stellate ganglion block. It's a medical procedure to treat just the physical symptoms of post-traumatic stress injury. Stellate ganglion block has actually been around for over 100 years, not treating post-traumatic stress, but for pain relief. That's actually what it was originally used for. And basically, it's an injection only done by a medical doctor. It's done in a bundle of nerves in your neck, and it's with a common anesthetic used for, like, a lot of times labor and delivery or childbirth. And it's for pain. But what they found out a couple decades ago was by accident that it can actually reduce or lessen these physical fight or flight symptoms. And so it doesn't cure post-traumatic stress, but what it does is it allows you to be in the right space or mindset or physical space to do the things you need to do, like therapy, group meetings, EMDR, meditation. There's all kinds of different things that you can try or do. And that's the thing, is that for most people, it's a combination approach. It's not one single thing that works for everybody. Stellate ganglion block I had done. And for me, immediately it reduced some of those physical symptoms.
That's crazy. So, I mean, that shows that trauma is scarring on the nervous system. It's causing physical injuries.
Absolutely. And that's why I advocate for post-traumatic stress injury versus disorder, because disorder has a very negative connotation to it. It makes you feel like it's something that you're stuck with, that you have no choice over. And that's not the case. It is a medical fact that repeated exposure to trauma can cause both a physical change and a chemical change to the human brain. And for me, it was definitely a combination. It was talk therapy, it was group meetings, it was stellate ganglion block, meditation. I've done things like equine therapy.
Working out.
I also practice gratitude. Every night when I go to sleep, I think of 3 things that day. Ending the day with just positive thoughts in your mind and then going to sleep with that, you're much more likely to have good dreams as opposed to nightmares or night terrors. I went through another program called Save a Warrior. It was a week-long program. It's actually free. It's for any military veterans, active military, any first responders, but it deals with that childhood trauma. Because for the first couple of years, I only dealt with the work trauma. I dealt with the things that I saw in the military. I dealt with the things that I saw on the job as a police officer, but I didn't deal with that childhood trauma. That's why I want people to understand, like, don't put all your eggs in one basket and don't give up if you try one thing and it doesn't work. Have an open mind and try new things.
Keep going. To an EMT, firefighter, police officer, first responder, military personnel, anyone who's in the situation where they need help and they're having thoughts of suicide or trauma symptoms and they can't because of culture, they can't ask for it. Do you have any input on things that they can try that nobody else would know to at least try something if they're feeling like they're going to kill themselves?
Absolutely. So I'm going to be a little biased here, but the first thing is this book right here,
Okay.
Relentless Courage. And the reason why I say that is 2 things. A lot of people don't want to ask for help and they don't want to out themselves. But by reading a book like this in the privacy of your own home, or listening to it on Audible in your car or your patrol car, you can see quickly that you're not alone, that you're not abnormal, because my story is going to be your story. And I guarantee that countless things in here will resonate with you. And with the doctor's analysis and explanation here, Doc Springer, she's my co-author, that's going to give you that insight and that validation
Yes.
that, most people don't have. And so, and in the back of the book, there's a complete reference resource section, things that I never knew about. So there are actually a bunch of text lines, hotlines that are free. They're 24/7. They're staffed by volunteers, many of whom are first responders or were first responders. People can call or text these anytime, day or night. They don't have to give any personal information. They don't have to say their name. They don't have to say where they work. And they can talk to somebody who's truly going to understand it, who's truly going to get it. I get the fear and the apprehension of people wanting to ask for help. But there's many things that you can do in privacy without other people knowing about it, and it's hard. It's not going to be easy, but you've got to get this stuff off your chest. You know, I was suicidal, and I thank God every day that I'm here, and I know I'm here for a reason. I absolutely do, but I'm living proof that things do get better, that there is hope, you know, and I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying it's going to be easy. I mean, my journey was difficult, and there was a lot of ups and downs. There was a lot of bad days, but there was a lot of good days. But I assure you, if you put in the work, you will get better. Just know, most importantly, there's endless resources out there. There are tons of your brothers and sisters who do get it, who will understand you, who aren't going to judge you. Everyone has a story. You and I were talking before this interview. You have a story. And there's power and healing in your story. And it's not only healing for us to share our story, but it's healing for other people. And what I found is that if you want people to be vulnerable with you, you have to first be vulnerable yourself. You know, how can we expect people, our loved ones or people in our lives, to come to us and open up and be vulnerable if we're not willing to do the same? And so I really encourage people to share your story, to show people that, you know, there is hope, that you have gotten through things, because it lets people know that they're not alone. It lets people know they can trust you, and trust is fundamental to all of this.
Hey guys, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed, leave a comment. Show these guests some support. What part impacted you the most so we can make them feel really good. These are real stories and raw emotions. Thank you.